Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia and this is the situation report or the summary for the day of 1092 to 1093 for the 19th to the 20th of February. So the conclusions, as I already done one conclusions, so you may be interested. It's a pretty long video because I talk about the casualty numbers, my estimates. I really don't like to do that, but I thought that there's some interesting information though, so do check it out. And also there is the latest information from the 21st as well up to this point. The latest information, the frontline changes, is actually in this map, so we will be talking about it as well. So stay tuned and subscribe. Yeah, so many of you guys don't subscribe. If you all subscribe, I will earn so much more money. I'll get so much more views. So so let's help me make more money. So we're gonna start off with some strategic things. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, on both days, MiG-29 got shot down over Ukraine, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. So one on each day, 19th and the 20th. So take it with a pinch of salt as usual. Still haven't seen anything on the F-16s and whatnot. Some rumors about it being used already, but yeah, nothing solid. So we'll do from the north all the way to the Kherson in the last. So over in the border region in Chernihiv, there is one bridge, particularly this one over at Nadiivka. Somehow this got blown up along this Sverdlikovo river by the Russian forces, and you can see that all the bridges here got destroyed. So wonder why this is the case. Why are they blowing up bridges? So something very suspicious about this place. So we shall wait and see now how this goes. Over in the Kursk front, at the Kursk front, there is some geolocations like Lancer hitting Ukrainian vehicles or equipment far away near Dachne, not important. Over in the western flank, we have the big news, which is the capture of Sverdlikovo. This is already confirmed by Ukrainian side, so this is now official. With the mapping also shows the Russian forces capturing a lot of the grounds, and today we have the geolocation confirming that the little bit of territory that was not mapped as Russian capture is now confirmed to be under Russian control. So this is a massive. I say massive many times because I need to draw the arrow, but you get what I mean. It's a pretty important capture because this has been fought over for a long time. So this is the major development over in the Kursk front. Rest of the front line more or less about the same shit. I mean, as in it's bait shit. I didn't swear. It's bait shit. So Sverdlikovo, and we have fighting reported at Lebedevka, Loknia, shelling at Kazecha, Loknia, as well as Zeleshenka. So this is the western flank. We move further up north. We have in the northern flank only Malaya, Loknia was mentioned, and Nikorsky. A geolocation of Fab 3000 was noted. A massive airstrike was conducted on Malaya, Loknia. So this area here is just all died. And this also corroborates with our mapping that we have invalidated the possible Russian claims here. And this geolocation basically sums it up. That's confirmed that the Russians are not there. There's not over Sudja region. We have fighting reported at Bondarevka, Kamakov, Magnovka. Sudja probably is shelling. Goncharovka is probably shelling. Zeleshenka already mentioned just now. Rubanskina as well as Gogolevka. So that's all from this region. Strategically, nothing have changed in this sector. Over in the southern flank, we have some developments. So this is wrong color. So the Russians are starting to do airstrikes. As you can see, another Fab 3000 hitting Ukrainian positions in the rear of Kukovo. This is another one hitting the rear of Krylovka. So the Russians are starting to pull out the heavy bombs. Fab 3000s to hit targets is a bit ridiculous. So it looks like the Russians are going to be on the offensive. And there is geolocation of Russian forces already crossing the river at the Svel River north of Goevo. Fighting is noted at Goevo, somehow not at Kurilovka. So it might be a case where the Russians are now concentrating their attack on Goevo. So that's a possibility. So looking forward to get more information about this area here. Very, very interesting developments here. We have this. So the Russians do this. I wonder if this will result in a pincer. Yeah, no. Just joking. Don't anything. No. Over at the Kharkiv front, we have only fighting reported at Voschansk. According to the both Russian and Ukrainian Defense Ministry, they both mentioned about Voschansk on both days. So this is continuing to be a killing ground for everyone, unfortunately. But otherwise, the rest of the Kharkiv front is quiet. The other Kharkiv area that actually see action is over at the Voreshna front. At the Voreshna front, we have fighting reported over at Voreshna, reported by the Russian Defense Ministry on the 19th. Kukivka was mentioned on the 20th. Clearly, the Russians are pushing out from Voreshna out to Kukivka. Zapadne was mentioned by the Ukrainians on both days, and Kindrashivka is by the Russians on the 20th. So there is definitely some pushing of the force in these various regions by the Russian forces, and the Ukrainians are talking mostly about Zapadne, while the Russians are talking about Kukivka. So this is the differences, but largely they are pushing across the entire front line. This is a very, very important front line, so we'll continue to monitor. Over in the Kupiansk front, we have fighting reported at Kupiansk. According to the Russian Defense Ministry on the 20th, Petropavlivka was mentioned on the 20th, 19th and 20th as well. Zagorokivka was mentioned on the 19th and the 20th, also by the Russian Defense Ministry. Nothing in the southern side. Stepovo Novoocheretuvate was mentioned by the Ukrainians on the 19th, but it was not reported on the 20th. And a geolocation of Ukrainian forces in around Stepovo Novoocheretuvate doesn't change our mapping, confirm Ukrainian presence in that sector. So Russians are pushing at Kupiansk, Petropavlivka, Zagorokivka, and Stepovo Novoocheretuvate. So this is the general sense of how it looks like over at Kupiansk front. So this is Kupiansk, by the way, for those that cannot see. Over at the Borova front. So this is Borova, and Borova itself got shelled. No, it's like, ooh, very sad. There is also fighting over here, but mainly over in the northern sector. At Sverdlikovo, it was mentioned by the Ukrainians that's fighting on the 19th and 20th is a continuation of the fighting previously, and Novoocheretuvate was mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry for the fighting. So the main gist of the fighting is still in this region, so nothing particularly new. It went really quiet for the rest of the front line though, somehow. We move further south over in the northern flank of the Liman front. We have fighting reported at Makiivka and at Nevsky. So which is both happened on the 19th, reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. The interesting thing about the Nevsky is in this report they write Nevsky, right? But the subsequent report they write Balka Zuravka. I was like, what? So it's like maybe the Balka Zuravka thing is the Ukrainians telling Google to change it. So maybe that's the case. So fighting reported in the Makiivka region and Balka Zuravka or Nevsky. So that's all from here. In the south, at the Liman front itself, we have fighting reported at Kolozyazi, reported by the Ukrainians and the Russians on separate days, 19th and 20th. Yampolivka was mentioned by the Ukrainians on both days, but this is already mentioned as captured by the Russian Defense Ministry on the 18th. So, which is why the Russians don't talk about it. And Serbiansky Forestry appeared on the reports on the 19th in the Russian report. So, and there's shelling reported at Yampil on the 20th, according to the Russians. So, this is the Kolozyazi, Yampolivka, and Serbiansky Forestry, and shelling at Yampil. So that's the main thing. And this shelling at Yampil actually got geolocated. There is a geolocation or FPV drone strike hitting MLRS. So this is probably what they are referring to, at what is happening at Yampil. We move into the Sivers front. At the Sivers front, we have Verkhamok and Yamsky and Bilohorivka being attacked whereas I think Prakhorivka is mostly shelling and Tronivka too. Sivers is getting a bit. It doesn't feel like it's an attack towards Sivers. It's feeling more like a shelling thing. But we shall wait and see. The main news is over at Bilohorivka with geolocation. This today's geolocation just happened today, where the Russian forces is noted in the northwest of Bilohorivka, confirming Russian advance in this sector again. This area has been changing hands many times between the two sides. So this is very, I would say pretty interesting, pretty meaningless as well, unless the Russians want to go all the way. And if they really want to go all the way, just, I don't know, just airborne over, I don't know. So that's the frontline change over in the north. Nothing else over in the rest. Over in the northern flank of the Bakhmut front, we have shelling reported at Nikiforivka, according to the Russian Defense Ministry on the 19th. Vasilkivka was mentioned on the 19th and 20th by both Ukrainian and the Russians, particularly the Ukrainians. So there must be some kind of a major operation happening in this sector, as is being mentioned by both sides. And the rear position seems to be at Nikiforivka. This is where the Ukrainian operating HQ is. Probably this is how they reinforce and send the forces over, and the Russians are pushing and shelling their positions. So definitely also something that is developing seemingly. We shall see. We shall see. Over at Kharkovivka, some interesting developments. We have the Russian Defense Ministry talking about Novoocheretuvate on the 20th. Kharkovivka was mentioned by Ryber. So the pro-Russian source talked about some updates of the situation around here. They say that this geolocation is the first sign that Kharkovivka is indeed under Russian control, which is like, okay, I don't know. And in their mapping, they mapped it this way, that the Russians have taken all these grounds according to the Russians. So these areas here have been now claimed by the Russian side to be under Russian control. Let's be it the case then, I would say. So we shall see. Because generally, why I'm a bit dismissive is because, this is just not strategically important, this place. Like, why you want to go through all these defenses? Like, so I'm not that keen into, idea that the Russians would just punch through all these defenses. It's not like they can't, but it's more like, what's the point? Why do you want to take the risk? Over in the Chasiv region, we have the mention of Chasiv by both sides on both days. And then Shavone was mentioned on the 20th, both by probably just some shelling, with the main action is around Chasiv. The lack of updates around Chasiv, so we do not know what is the changes here. And Ukrainian Defense Ministry weirdly talk about Ivanivsky, which is weird. I wonder if I get the right Ivanivsky, because there is the Ivanivsky around here, right? This is the famous one. So somehow they just say Ivanivsky, which, is not that near the front line. So in the southern flank, we have Bilohorivka being mentioned and Ozaryanivka, which is mentioned by the Ukrainians on the 19th as well. So there is some harassment, some Russian probing in these regions here. They're trying to find if there's any weak spot on the Ukrainian side in this southern side. This is not strategically very important in this sector, because the entire region can be just cut off if the Russians manage to attack through this sector. So tentatively, that's not important. Over the Torex front, we have some shelling over in Ivanopilia on the 19th, according to the Russians, and Kateryinivka. So not particularly important. I'm just noting that these towns were mentioned. Of course, they usually also mention Konstantinivka, which I usually don't map it in because it's just pointless. But there is Dilievka being mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry on the 19th, Torex on the 19th and 20th by the Ukrainians, and Leonidivka is by the Ukrainians on the 19th. Torex is largely only reported by the Ukrainian side because the Russians had already claimed capture. The Russian Defense Ministry already claimed the capture on the 7th of February, so they don't talk about Torex anymore. to them, they're just consolidating the position in the city, whereas Nadiivka, is still pretty much an active thing. But the Russian Ryba did claim that they were captured on the 10th of January. So it was confirmed to be captured on the 17th by our mapping, but the Ukrainians still say that there is fighting around here. So let's wait. Over in the northern flank of the Pokrov front, we have fighting reported at Novoocheretuvate on the 19th, Sverdlikovo on the 19th, Vodyany through here on the 19th, 20th. All these are Ukrainian information. Tarasivka is reported by Ryba along with Zelenopole was reported on the 19th and 20th, both by the Ukrainian side. And the Deep State UA did mention the Ukrainians have some success in terms of a counterattack at Nadiivka. So this is according to Ukrainians, whereas the Russians allegedly was attacking all these various places. The Ukrainian mapping does confirm that though this is by Ryba, this is a Russian claim. This is the Ukraine mapping. So this area right now is a Russian claim that the Russian forces, based on Russian sources, saying that they have now pushed to the south of Tarasivka, whereas the Ukrainian mapping confirmed that the Russians have entered into Zelenopole from the east. So this is confirmed. So this is the current situation in this area here. I did mention, I believe, in the conclusions that the Russians are hitting left and right, confusing the Ukrainians where the main push are. And the bad news, I would say, is both sides are real. No, both are the real push. It's just that, they're just taking turns, and making the Ukrainians run here and there across these two sectors. So that's the main thing right now. So that's all from this the situation in the northern flank of the Pokrov front. Over the Novoocheretuvate sector, so this is Novoocheretuvate, this is the sector here. The Russians are attacking at Promin, reported by the Ukrainians on both days. Lysivka is mentioned by the Ukrainians on 20th, whereas Deep State UA mentioned about Ukrainian counter-offensive actions in Lysivka. The Pokrov is mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry and then by Ukrainians. So there is this fighting here. So the Promin, Lysivka, and the counter-attack, and then the Russians attack at Pokrov. So the main thing is happening around here, where we have these interesting changes. So Deep State UA mapped that the Ukrainians have some success at Lysivka, where the Ukrainian forces managed to retake parts of the eastern flank of Lysivka. However, geolocation just appeared today. Is by Crimean Caprice. Today, Russian forces basically is inside of Lysivka. And I've mapped it in this way, in a rather conservative way, because I could have mapped like they have taken almost the entire city or the entire town. So this is a conundrum right now, because we have geolocation confirming Russian presence, but the Ukrainians, Deep State UA says that the Ukrainians are having success at Lysivka. So this is a bit of a weird conundrum. So we just wait for more information to see how this continue to play out in this area here. And before I go on, do press the like button. Just a reminder in case you didn't hear me the first time round, and subscribe. I know this is, if you're watching to this point, clearly you enjoy listening to a bit of a more technical style report of the Ukraine war. So don't subscribe support, because nowadays the algorithm is very biased towards subscriber numbers. It's not like I really want to force you to subscribe, but yeah, but the algo is forcing me to remind you guys. So blame the game, not the wired. So over at Piszczany, we have some situation as well. The Deep State UA, the pro-Ukrainian source, claimed that the Ukrainians actually have expanded the control in the northern flank of Piszczany. However, previously we have geolocation of Russian forces over in the south. So again, this is a bit of a weird situation where the Russians are fighting with the Ukrainians in Piszczany, in this a very weird formation of the front line. So it's definitely not looking good if you have a front line looking so weird. Like you're putting yourself in a salient, in a pocket, like they're now inside here, like they're here. Why do you put yourself inside a pocket? Unless you're going to push further in a pincer, maybe that's something, but if you're not going to do a pincer, then yeah, you're going to be in deep shit. The same thing happening here, right? The Ukrainians are putting themselves here. Whereas Russian claims are around here. These are Russian claims. and the Russians are now not going to close. I'm not sure. So let's see, because this is parallel universe. And for those that are new to DPA, in case you never hear me say before, DPA's mapping is not one map, it's actually two maps. The blue map is actually the Ukrainian perspective of the war, whereas the pink one is actually the Russian perspective of the war. So this is actually two different mapping. So when you see overlapping, it's just like they just have different perspective on what is happening. When, of course, geolocations or concessions of grounds would instantly change both maps. So that's something to note. So FPV drone hitting an armored vehicle, so clearly shows Ukrainians are still around here defending. And I have to say that the Ukrainians are doing a very good job holding the Russians at Kotlyne and Dachne, because I expected the Russians to break out, but they didn't manage to do so. So we continue to have this very old school tank around here, like a World War I tank, or rather I don't know, I'm not sure. This looks like a tank to me. Yeah, terrible tank. Okay, never mind, forget it. Over in the southern, over in this sector as well, the Nadiivka was mentioned by the Ukrainians on the 20th, and Novoocheretuvate was mentioned on the 19th. Geolocation of Russian forces hitting Ukrainians with FPV, optic FPV drones. So there is this push, whereas there is fighting over at Dachne and Kotlyne. They are pushing towards Nadiivka, and they are also pushing south over at Novoocheretuvate. So these are still ongoing. This is strategically not very significant. Like we all thought that actually it's just me, because it's just me talking. I thought that they would go for the border soon, but looks like they didn't manage to do so. Looks like the Ukrainians are doing their best to plug the hole to prevent the Russians from able to break out to touch the border, because once they touch the border, it's a PR victory for the Russians. So, and the Ukrainians is very obsessed with PR. Over in the southern flank of the Pokrov front, we have the Russian Defense Ministry announcing today, just hours ago, that they have captured Nadiivka. So this is the claim right now, that they have captured Nadiivka. Fighting is being reported still by Russian and Ukrainian Defense Ministry on the 19th. And on the 20th, the Ukrainians are talking about it, but the Russians are already claiming that the capture. So there is also Sverdlikovo on the 20th by the Ukrainians, Stripne by the Ukrainians on the 20th as well. Geolocation of Russian forces in Zaporizhia confirming the Russians' presence around there. So Stripne, Sverdlikovo, geolocation of Russian forces in Zaporizhia, and of course the push over at Novoocheretuvate in the north. So that's the current situation. So yeah, this push westward is also slowed down. I would say mainly the Ukrainians are very concerned about the PR situation. This is not me talking out of my ass. This is just how the Ukrainians look at the war somehow. So clear my throat a bit. So we have Oleksievka mentioned by the Russians on the 19th, and then Nadiivka on the 19th, 20th, and 21, because there's some frontline changes allegedly at Nadiivka, which I cannot see. Bahatia was mentioned on the 20th by the Russians, Rozliv by the Russians on the 19th, Constantinople all the way on the 21st, and of course we have all these other places. The significance is that the Russians, the geolocation, the latest geolocation today, just hours ago, confirmed the Russians' capture of Ulakly. This is now confirmed capture. And we have the Ukrainians also mapping that Dachne is now fully captured by the Russians. So this is also fully captured. And with all these, there is this massive Ulakly salient, or Ulakly pocket, totally captured by the Russian forces. The impossible salient around Sverdlikovo is also entirely captured. Ulakly itself also geolocated to be entirely captured. The Ukrainians also mapped that the Russians have connected the northern flank, and they have basically captured the northern part of Nadiivka and fighting at Rozliv, Constantinople, and then Oleksievka. The Constantinople also pretty significant because the Russians basically in our previous report has already cut off the retreat route. And in Ulakly itself, the geolocation of Russian forces in these two locations confirming the full capture of Ulakly, because there's just no way that the Ukrainians can be around here, because if you just pull out like this, around 200 meters or 300 meters is pretty safe. It should be all under Russian control. This is already the end of the line, so it's gone. No, it's all gone. And I will say that I tell you the next mapping is going to be like this. It's going to be all gone. The next mapping. So yeah, this is unavoidable. It's just going to be the way it is. So that's the strategic situation right now. So massive changes around in the Nadiivka front. Over the Velika Novoocheretuvate front, we have a lot of action as well, because the Russians are making a major offensive in this sector. So they are pushing like this northward. So but going through the details, we have Rozdone mentioned by the Russians and the Ukrainian Defense Ministry on the 1920th. Russians mentioned about shelling at Koma on the 20th. Novoocheretuvate was mentioned by the Russian and Ukrainians. There's some attacks around here. However, the Russians mentioned that they have captured Novoocheretuvate today. Hours ago, they mentioned the capture. We have geolocation to more or less confirm that the Russians have in fact captured. They were here, and so in the distance of around, this town is a bit big. Yeah, so there is, with the geolocation alone, I wasn't very sure, but the Russian Defense Ministry already announced the capture. Novoocheretuvate also was mentioned by the pro-Russian source and by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. Ulakly, 19th and 20th by the Russians. Privony is by the Ukrainians, and then Novoocheretuvate is by the Russians and the Ukrainians by both sides. On the 20th, Zelenopole is by the Russians, Novopil is by the Ukrainians. So a lot of like the Russians are talking about Zelenopole, Ukrainians are talking about Novopil. So it's largely the same offensive. It's the same offensive, but they're just citing different places. So if I draw all the lines, it's going to be fighting at Rozdone, Novikoma, Novoocheretuvate, towards Ulakly, Vinnypole, Novoocheretuvate, Novopil, Zelenopole, and then the frontline change over in the south of Ulakly, all captured by the Russian forces, major developments, and the capture of Novoocheretuvate mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry. So you can see how this develops. The Russians are making this major northward push on the west of Velika Novoocheretuvate. So that is the current situation over in this sector. And then we move on. Over at the Zaporizhia front, we have quite a number of reports across the line. Huepole was mentioned on the 19th, along with Zalishne. And then over at the Novoocheretuvate was mentioned by Russians and Ukrainians. Mali Shubaki was mentioned by the Ukrainians and the Russians as well on the 19th and 20th. Stepove also is by the Ukrainians. Kanyamsky is mentioned by the Russians, and Shalin at Stepnokhurst mentioned by the Russians. So if I draw all the arrows, it's going to look like this. Huepole, Zalizhnishne, Novoocheretuvate, Mali Shubaki, Stepove, Kanyamsky, and Shalin at Stepnokhurst. And this is of course looking very, very suspicious. As I already mentioned before, this line here is looking very suspicious. It looks like the Russians are planning something around here. So we have to wait and see how this continue to play out. But no, this is a heavily defended line. You can see these two lines here, very heavily defended. So don't expect too much for now. Over in the Kherson front, we have Shalin reports mainly. We have Shalin reporter at Kacherivka. And zooming in, we can see Dniprovsky, Antonivka, Tokarivka, Mikhailsky, Tyakhinka, and Pre-Dniprovsky was mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry, and usually now you will put it as an attack in this sector. So there is this Pre-Dniprovsky, Tyakhinka, Tokarivka, Mikhailsky, and Ternovka, and Pre-Dniprovsky. So Kherson front generally is still just a stalemate front. It's just going to be a static front. A lot of people ask me about when will Russians take Mykolaiv or Odessa. My reply for those that are wondering, when Russia will go for Odessa is only when the Ukrainians' military combat capability is entirely dissolved. That means the Ukrainian military can no longer fight. That's when the Russians will go for Odessa. But at this moment, the Ukrainians can still fight, so I don't think that's going to be the case. So that's it. Yeah, so thank you for watching. So this is the summary for the day of 1092 to 1093, 19th to 20th of February 2025. So the third anniversary of the war is coming. And what does that mean? It means super panel. The super panel has already been recorded just now. The guest, I'll keep it a secret for now first. But it's a fantastic conversation. So I will need to do some preparation work for it, and then I'll schedule and premiere it. Hope you guys will enjoy it, and yeah. So that's it. Press the like button. Press. Hit it, whack it, bomb it, destroy it, humiliate it. No, you should totally humiliate that like button. And I'll see you guys in the next update.